Hello everybody, and welcome to section 2 of our terrific toddler series. We're glad you could join us and come back for the second session. So today I'm still the same person, Judy Arnall, as I did in the first session introduction. And you know what, I still have the same kids. And I don't think we have to cover meetings, but just keep in mind this session is copyrighted 2012 with Professional Parenting Canada. We ask that you just keep this for your personal use and not share it with other people. Tonight's session information comes from Alberta Health Services, who developed this course, and they get a lot of their recommendations from the Canadian Pediatric Society, Health Canada, Public Health Agency, and in this course for parent effectiveness training, because as I mentioned before, a lot of the curriculum developers were PET instructors, and it's still good stuff in there. So tonight we are going to cover developmental stages. We're going to look a little bit at attachment and exploration. We're going to look at separation anxiety, talk a little bit about sleep challenges, and toilet training. So by now you should all have gotten your workbook either as a PDF or, if you prefer, a print copy in the mail. And this is your workbook with a lot of exercises for what we do during this course. It's nice, easy to read, and just print off the sheets as you need them. And I will refer to the sheet numbers throughout the course. You also should have gotten a copy of the book Parenting with Patience, because it has a very good index of development, which we're going to talk about tonight too. Okay, so last week, just to recap, we should have covered picky eating, temperament, and self-care, and yeah, I think that's, and parenting styles. So if you have any questions about those, feel free to contact us, and we'd be happy to talk about it and maybe answer your questions for your unique child and your family's challenges if you're having any. So let's move on to developmental milestones and stages. Now, I really like this piece because this is what the rest of the course hinges on. It's hard to discipline if you don't know what's appropriate behavior for what age, because sometimes we ask ourselves, is it a discipline issue or is it a development issue? And a lot of development corrects itself naturally as children get older, so we don't even have to step in and do anything. So it's important to understand what your child is doing at what age. So Alberta Health Services key content here is all kids develop in 4 domains at once: emotional, cognitive, social, and physical. Their developmental is sequential, but each child goes at their own pace within developmental norms. Child development cycles through periods of equilibrium and disequilibrium. I believe the current word right now is regressions. That seems to be popular of how we talk about those. A child is focused on the developmental tasks of autonomy and initiative, and also within stages of being, doing, and thinking. And understanding development is critical for parents to develop a parenting style and tools. Healthy habits, activity, hand washing, oral hygiene, and preventative medical care taught early will last a lifetime. Eating, sleeping, and toileting are the most common power struggles between toddlers and parents. And parents who understand child development are more likely to choose appropriate ways to interact with and guide their child. Healthy eating, sleep, activity, and a safe environment is very important for children's growth and development. So we often ask our groups, when we do this in a live course, what does your toddler do? And we often get a lot of these descriptions back. Excuse me. So a toddler is all these things and more. They are absolutely wonderful little human beings, but in need of a lot of protection and understanding. In your book, you'll find a little handout called Toddler Property Laws. It's really cute. I'm not going to read it here, but feel free to look at it on page B4. And it just tells you where toddlers' thinking is. They're not very logical yet. They're not very reasonable. You can't reason with a toddler. Very, very black and white thinking. And that's really cute. So when we talk about development, children development is in 4 categories: physical, cognitive, social, and emotional. And it all happens at the same time. Children do cycle through periods of equilibrium and disequilibrium. And usually just before a growth or development milestone, children may not eat well, sleep well, they're cranky, they're whiny, they're clingy, and then they hit a milestone such as standing or walking, and back to normal. And then they're easygoing kids again. So it's important to keep in mind that if you see something happening, it's not always permanent. It's a stage. It's going through a development period, and it gets better, even without your interference. Now, children of all ages under about age 5 have these common cognitive characteristics. They're very egocentric. So what that means is they are the center of their universe. They can't really think about other people yet, and that's why they don't go to school until age 6, because school demands children who need to think about other people's needs, and they can't do that before age 6. So it's very normal for them to think about what they need, what they want on their schedule. You have time limitations, of course, because we're parents, we have outside interests and jobs, and we have to run a household, but it's important to understand children do not understand that. We understand it, but they don't get that until much later. They have animism, which means that they think that their stuffed animals are real and human, and objects are real. They have very black-white thinking, no gray areas there. And they think magically. Around age 3, they wish for certain things, and they almost live as if they're true. So when they lie, it's not a real lie in that it doesn't have maliciousness. It's just more wishful thinking kind of lie. They have a huge lack of impulse control, and we'll talk about that more later on. And they have a sense of omnipotence and grandiosity. They're all powerful. They will leap off a countertop with no worries or cares about the dangers that may await them. And they have no sense of time or ability to plan. That's the parent's job. And all these things can be very frustrating to parents who don't understand that it's very normal, and children grow out of it as they get older. Now, coupled with that, you have other variables thrown into the mix. Every child is unique. So back to the other screen, where these are quite common among all children in the world, your child is unique in a lot of these things. So every child is in a different developmental milestone and stage. They have different temperaments, as we talked about last week, different personality traits, introverts, extroverts, different birth order. So first child may be a lot different personality than the 5th child. Different learning styles and ways they learn. Different intelligences, different genders, different love languages, and of course their brain architecture and their genes. Even though they're raised in the same social environment of a family, that nature part still makes them a bit different. So everything is about a stage. Children go through developmental stages. One of the foremost fathers of cognitive development is Jean Piaget, and a lot of his theories are still incorporated into current theories on child development. Piaget and Erik Erikson's stages are still very popular and still being taught in psychology, nursing, all those fields that touch on child development. So these are Piaget's stages. He divides them into these age groups, and this is what he calls a stage. And we will go through them one by one. They're also developed into how different parts of the brain develop and areas of the brain that are especially sensitive during different age groups. Excuse me. So the important thing to remember here is that children under age 5 listen about 40% of the time. When we say listen, that means when you tell them to do something, they might do it. Now, that means 60% of children under age 5 do not listen when you tell them to do something. And when you consider that's the majority, that is pretty normal behavior. And again, that's why kids don't go to school before age 6, is because they can't have that self-control to listen and follow instructions. So keep that in mind. So according to Piaget, if you, a little child under age 2, I mean, if you tell them to do something, they might do it 5% of the time. And under age 5, they comply about 40%. And that gets better. It gets into the majority in the school age years when it's about 60%. And then teenager years about 80%. And that's in a normal, respectful parent-child relationship. I kind of like this. I pulled this off Facebook, but it kind of tells you how fast childhood goes. So you have a newborn for a month, an infant for a year, a toddler for 2 years, a preschooler for 2 years, a child for 5 years, a preteen for 3 years, and a teenager for 5 years. And then they're gone. They're off doing their thing. So it goes by pretty fast. So it all comes down to brain development. So your baby is born with 100 billion brain cells called neurons. And for the most part, these neurons are not attached to each other. Some are attached. I have a slide here. Well, coming up. Some are attached just to keep the heart, brain, and lungs going and the body processes. But most of the connections between neurons occurs after birth, when the child starts experiencing his surroundings and the people around him. So brain development begins mostly around the brain stem, works up to the back of the brain to the front. So the last part of the brain to develop is that prefrontal cortex in the emerging adult years. So when a baby is 0 to 6 months, excuse me, we say they're in the being stage. Their whole job is emotional bonding, recognition, and nurturing from the parent. So they're in a stage of sensory input and output. So they take in information and they express information. They take it in by their 5 senses, their eyes, their ears, their nose, their mouth, mostly their mouth too, and they express themselves through crying. That's their communication. They're not being bad, it's what they do. And sensory input will be they feel cold. Sensory output is they cry. They feel hungry, they cry. They feel lonely, they cry. Babies are born with about 6 emotions, and they express them too. So helpful job for parents here is to be warm and nurturing and meet their needs. The next stage is the exploring stage. So this is mostly, again, the brain stem, but moving up towards the inner part of the brain. So this is 6 to 18 months. Children here are in the doing stage. So they're starting to crawl, they're starting to move, they're starting to walk, they're getting into things. And their whole job here is to explore and develop their sensory awareness. Helpful parenting here is to make it safe for their free exploration. And it's a fun stage. So what I like to do right here is play a little video and just show you how they explore. And children are, their whole body just drives them to explore at this stage. I think it's just loading right here. Are we going to load? Here we go. Okay.
Morning, Mom.
Good morning, Bobby. You want some toast?
Oh, yeah, sure, Mom.
How do you know what you know? Hi, little sweetie. How are you doing? How do you know the objects around you will not suddenly begin to float? Or simply disappear? It all seems so obvious. You know how the world works. Your baby does not. Which is why babies need to test their environment and everything in it, over and over and over and over. Your baby is a natural-born explorer with an innate desire to learn. What is this? You know that. Just like you know that cereal is not going to stay in the bowl. Babies learn by testing everything.
For more information on parenting and child development, visit parentingcounts.org.
So I love that video that shows that they're not being bad. They're just exploring. They're natural-born little scientists. So, so you don't want to discourage that exploration. You want to make it safe. And depending on how patient you are, sure, it's nice to let a child throw a bowl of cereal on the floor. But if you've been tired from lack of sleep, sometimes it doesn't look all that wonderful in terms of science exploration. So, so gauge your own patient level. But the more you can let children explore safely and cleanly, the better for their brains. Now, the next stage is the feeling stage. Now, we're heading into the middle of the brain here by the amygdala, the hippocampus, and this is where children are experiencing a wide range of emotions. And because their language skills are not yet developed, they talk about feelings in terms of body language, which is tantrums. So that's why a lot of people call this stage the terrible twos, but we like to call them the terrific toddlers because tantrums are a normal part of development. It's just that children can't express their negative feelings in terms of words yet. As they get their words more toward 3 to 5, then they start lessening their tantrums. At this stage, it's pretty normal to have a tantrum at least every day. We're talking about the children, not the parents. Every day, and sometimes more than 1 or 2 a day. It can be a really long day. So at this stage, they're testing reality. They want to do everything and go everywhere, but they have no knowledge of danger. So it may appear they're pushing boundaries when they're just being driven to explore. They're expressing their negativity, and that's good. They're feeling their feelings. They're trying to express how unhappy they are about things, and in the only way they can. And they're starting to learn to think. So that's a good thing too. Here's some common characteristics of toddlers age 1 to 3. So they have tantrums. They want independence, but then they don't want independence. They desperately need security. They need to feel secure, and it can look like clinginess, but that's what they need. Common to hit, push, and bite at this stage. I actually never had a biter until my 5th child, but he was a biter. Whenever he was frustrated, he would clamp down on some child's skin next to him. So for about 18 months, I had to stop going to playgroups and supervise him super closely. And he grew out of it. He's 14 now and doesn't bite. It's the land of no, no, I do it, or no, I don't want it. You could ask them, do you want some ice cream? No. And they're just saying that because they love the power of the no word. They have very little self-control. They go through intense separation anxiety because their attachment to their loved ones is very strong. They're super honest. If they don't like the smell of somebody's house, they will say it. And they're super active. This is the most active period of childhood. Toddlers are more active than college student football players, and a very short attention span. Now, the key to remember is don't project. At this stage, from 0 to age 3, you're just doing damage control. You're not doing a whole lot of discipline or teaching. Best years to teach are the school years from age 6 to 12. So when I talk about damage control, you're keeping them safe, you're keeping your house safe. That's what you're doing the first 3 years. Now, many parents have the snowball effect, what we call, and what it means is they feel if they don't address it now, they need to nip things in the bud or it's going to snowball. So if their child is hitting at age 2.5, they're looking ahead and thinking, oh no, if I don't come down on this hard now, my child's going to be hitting at age 15. And that is not true because everything's a stage. At age 15, your child's going to have a lot more self-control and the ability to handle their emotions without hitting. Parents feel they have to teach the most important lessons at a time when children's brains are ill-equipped to handle the frustrations of those limits. So you'll have many, many chances to teach. I'm just going to read this from one of my favorite websites, 0to3.org. Self-control is the child's capacity to modulate feelings and then control their behavior, and they can't do it until age 5. And what that means is at age 5, they can think before acting, they can understand consequences then, they can use words to explain their feelings rather than tantrum, they can understand their feelings, and they can exhibit appropriate behavior. Now, 0to3.org, they found that 43% of parents thought a child by age 3 could control their emotions and stop tantrums. And what that does is it translates to inappropriate expectations and subsequent discipline. Other factors of children's ability for self-control is their temperament. Spirited children take longer to rein in those tantrums and have a bit more frustration tolerance. And the development of their executive function. So that planning, reasoning, decision-making, that comes throughout childhood, but it really comes into play in adolescence. So children don't have a whole lot of executive function in the first year, couple years. And their context, if they're tired, if they're hangry, if their environment is demanding, they're going to melt down. They don't have self-control to push themselves through it like we adults do. So what does that mean? The relationship with their parents has the biggest impact on their ability to control their behavior. Why? And we'll talk about this in discipline. Adults can teach them strategies to handle their self-control. Adults can model self-control. Adults can, when we can't have self-control, we model apologies, right? We tell children we have a few rules of behavior and clear limits, and we teach the child to use their words. And we also teach a quiet moment timeout, not a jail timeout, but a quiet moment to calm down timeout. And we prevent problems by child-proofing. So if you want more information on self-control, there's a lot of really good websites. AlbertaFamilyWellness.org is really, really good, and 0to3.org. So now we're heading into the preschooler years. This is age 3 to 6. And keep in mind, preschool is not mandatory because children do not have self-control to sit in circle time, to take turns, to share. Now, parents do send their children to preschool to start learning those skills, but they are not expected until age 6, when children have the brain development to consistently try those pro-social skills. So this age is more the back of the brain, so children are starting to think and ask questions. So they're learning a bit of difference between reality and fantasy, but they're still huge into the fantasy mystical world. And you'll see this a lot as children start to play. They start to role play and imagine things, and it's just so amazing to watch a child's brain at this stage. They come up with all kinds of questions like, why is the sky blue? Why do flowers grow petals in the summer and not the winter? So they will bombard you with questions, and best parenting practices here are answer their questions as much as you can. They're not being annoying. They want to learn. They're starting to experience consequences, but again, you still want to hold off using consequences until the school age years where they totally understand them and can make choices and can think ahead. They're becoming aware of power. This is a stage of power struggles over the 4 things we have no control over, which is eating, sleeping, toileting, and learning. Those are all activities within a child's control. And because they have so little control over their lives, they exert control over those things they can. And a helpful parenting tip here is not to get sucked into power struggles. Step out of them. You have the power anyways, but let it go, come back and deal with it another way. And they're starting to learn socially acceptable behavior. What's public, what's private. So, yes. So this is a lovely stage, but this is a stage where you can start teaching, teach, but don't expect they're going to get it the first 20 times. So we teach over and over. We walk, we don't run. We leave rocks on the playground. We don't throw them at people. We don't push. We use our words. Here's our words. So lots of teaching, but don't expect they're going to get it. Remember that 40% compliance rate under age 5. Okay, here's some common characteristics of age 3 to 6. So they question. Whining really is big here. They're very active. They start to use their power, and they do have power. I remember when my son was 5 and he went to school and he learned how other kids use power. So one day he was really mad at me and he said, "Mom, you're not coming to my birthday party." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yahoo, one less party to plan." But he was using power in a way that he saw other kids use power over kids at school. So they're learning how and where they have power and how to use it, which is a very good, healthy thing. Amazing imaginations. And because of that imagination, a lot of fears crop up at this stage because their imagination starts telling them what could happen. Monsters in the closet, car washes, dogs, vacuums, you name it, children have it. They do grow out of it. They're starting to become a little more cooperative, which is kind of nice, but keep in mind they still have a short attention span and still no time sense or ability to plan. So if they're dawdling as you get out the door to preschool, it's not them, it's you. You have to adjust your schedule to account for that. Okay, I'm just going to go through the next 2 stages just so you can see what's ahead. So the school age years, beautiful. This is more the back of the brain here, where they're starting to develop their brain logically but concretely. So they still understand concepts that are in their environment and they can see, hear, smell, and taste. So, for example, if you look at the whole grade 1 to 6 curriculum, it covers a lot of things that are in children's environment. It covers plains, wetlands, crawling animals, colors, those kinds of things they can see and touch and feel. Nothing abstract yet, not until junior high and teenagerhood. So in this stage, they're learning structure and skill development. So they're learning how to get organized, how time works, how people work, and they're learning a whole range of new skills. So this is a great time they can experiment, make mistakes, build skills, learn to argue and question, and test and negotiate rules. It's a lovely age. And at this stage, parents are all-knowing. They will come to you for answers with anything, more so than the teenage years. So these are your prime years to teach, discipline, and build relationships. In a good, respectful relationship, children will comply about 60% of the time. Now, they still have needs too, so that accounts for that other 40. And then the teenage years is more the front of the brain is growing and especially sensitive here. And they notice that feeling stage is back, the same one as the 18 months to 3 years. So again, that amygdala is very active. So children are thinking abstractly, so they can understand gray areas between the black and white. They can also understand their feelings better, and now they have the words to express them. Yay! So less tantrums, hopefully. In a respectful relationship, they comply about 80% of the time. And their stage here is identity, sexuality, and separation. So they're experimenting with their sexuality. They're developing their own philosophy of life, values, beliefs. They try some on. They borrow from their other people. And they're figuring out what works for them. And they're also separating from parents and siblings. They're preparing for the adult world. And there's emerging adults, which is about 19 to 25, where the foremost part of the brain is still finalizing. That myelination is still thickening, and that's where the reasoning, critical thinking, decision-making comes into play. With that research, you kind of wonder why we give kids the vote at 18. Maybe we should hold off until they're 25. But again, policy doesn't quite catch up with research yet. So, but keep in mind that sometimes a 22-year-old will do something that you think, what were you thinking? And it's just a stage. So keep in mind, these are all stages, and children move through them as they grow. So coming here all the way around to here, and it builds. So it's really important. If you, for example, if you tell a child at 4 years, if you present different shaped glasses with the same amount of liquid, and you say, is that the same amount of liquid as you pour it from one glass to another, they will say no at 4 years. They think the liquid changes. But at 7 years, they understand it's the same liquid. So a huge leap in development between toddlers and school agers. So keep in mind, I think I could tell you about the marshmallow test that was in the 60s at Stanford University, where researchers had a room full of 4-year-olds, and they gave them all a marshmallow, and they said, if you can keep this marshmallow on your desk for the next 5 minutes and not eat it, we will come back and give you a second marshmallow. And then they left the room and they went behind one-way mirrors and they observed these preschoolers trying to distract themselves from eating marshmallows. And it was really cute to watch. They would sit on their hands, they would count to 10, they would close their eyes, they were really trying not to eat the marshmallow, and about half of them couldn't do it. They didn't have that delay in gratification to not eat the marshmallow, or they were eating marshmallows for whatever reasons, but they couldn't do it. So keep that in mind. These are 4-year-olds. So you can imagine how much self-control a 2-year-old would have. Not much. You're their primary means of self-control at this age. And you'll hand it over to them gradually in stages. Okay, so that's about it on development. So moving into attachment theory. Key content here from Alberta Health Services is that toddlers need a secure base of a parent or caregiver to return to while they explore and develop independence. Secure attachment teaches the child to trust, and that is so critical for emotional development for the first year and more in the toddler years. So often, when is your child more clingy? Think about times that your child clings to you. It can be when you bring home a new baby, another sibling. It can be when they're sick, when they're in a strange environment like a vacation or somebody else's house or somebody new they haven't met. And what they do is they cling to you for security. They're scared. They want familiar, comforting adults to cling to. And that's very normal and good. And when are children more adventurous? When they have filled up their need for security, then they're ready to go out and explore and look around and do things and find things. So what happens is children need, their security bank needs to be full. And if it's not full, they will find ways to fill it. So when you're bringing home that new baby sibling, your child's going to be more clingy and want more of you. And the problem is you don't have the time or the energy. I mean, that's the time you need your child to be independent, and they can't. They're upset by this whole topsy-turvy of their world, and they want more of you. They want more security, more time with you to feel secure. So it's kind of a mishmash conflict of needs, but as the adult, you have to take in consideration your child's needs too. So when children they're filled with security, they're in a safe zone, and they're good. Then they want to go out and explore. They can extend their comfort zone. When they move into the scary zone, they go back to that security person, that attachment person, and they may sit in their lap, they may cuddle, they may stay a while before they will go out and explore. And you'll see this a lot in varying degrees with children at a playgroup. Some hang around mom or dad and want to feel safe, and it takes them a couple weeks before they'll go out and explore without their mom and dad right next to them. And then you see other kids who are out there trying on the toys and and going out and playing easily. And it's just a different need of security, and it's all normal, and children are different. It doesn't mean anyone's wrong or better. It just means they all have different levels of security. I personally found my spirited children had a deeper need for security than my easygoing children. So, for example, my daughter, when she went off to university, she would want to come home a lot of weekends. She came home, fill up on her security with family, with familiarity, and then more towards Christmas, she stayed more and more at her residence rather than coming home because she had filled up. She had that comfort, she had that attachment, but she was ready to go out and explore more, and that's good. So how do you foster that attachment? You comfort your child when they're hurt, sick, or upset. So that's the best time. Dads often say, well, how can I build more of attachment with my kids? And I say, you be the one to move in and comfort them. So when they trip and fall and scrape their knee, pick them up, hold them, give them a hug, rock them, say, oh, that hurts. It's okay. It's okay. And Fulfill their needs for exploration. Make sure it's safe, make sure you child-proof, and let them explore. Okay, I have another video for this session that kind of demonstrates that attachment and exploration. So watch the dad and see how he comforts his son.
Okay, there you go. Bye-bye.
Your growing toddler. He's not a baby anymore. But don't be fooled. He needs your encouragement as much as ever.
I'm here. Oh, you're okay.
Every time you respond to your child's needs, he learns to trust you, rely on you. The trick is to give him your steady reassurance
I'm right here.
and still recognize his need to be independent, sometimes exploring imaginary lands. But stay close, because through the eyes of a child, the world can be a scary place. So be there when he needs to check in. A little goes a long way.
Something scary, buddy?
Yeah.
Well, it's okay. You can stay here until you're ready for your next adventure, okay? Okay, on your way.
Your child needs to know you'll be there. For more information on parenting and child development, visit parentingcounts.org.
And that demonstrates just how kids need to check in and be secure. So this need to check in, it's most important in the younger years, but you will still see it as they hit school age. So children feel more insecure at different times in their lives. So for example, at toddler age, when they have fears, or when they're starting preschool, or when a new sibling comes home, they're going to feel more dependent on their caregivers and parents for support. Same when they start school or grade 7, maybe a new school, middle school, high school, and off to university, or leaving home for the first time, or going on a first overseas trip. So 50 years of research demonstrates that the more you meet a child's need for attachment and dependency, the faster they become independent. You don't make a child independent by pushing them away. Take them in, comfort them, fill them up on security, give them what they need, and then release them to explore. Okay, we'll just take a few minutes here, see if anybody has questions. Okay, so moving on to separation anxiety. So Alberta Health Services key content here is separation anxiety and fears are common in the toddler years, and the child is learning he's a separate person and can influence his environment. It's a good thing. So separation anxiety, it usually occurs around 8 months to about 3 years. That's when it peaks. And they realize they're a separate person and you can leave them. Stranger anxiety is when more babies, 5 months to 1 year, they start to realize they don't like certain people. They don't like being passed around the room. Some characteristics of people scare them. Maybe, for example, my son, he didn't like people with glasses and he didn't like people with dark hair. And it was really cute because we took him in for baby pictures and wouldn't you know the photographer had dark hair. He cried the whole time. And again, these are things they grow out of. It's not something you can fix. You just have to manage it, help them, encourage them, but it's something that gets better with time. Some appropriate strategies. So if most parents are going back to work at that 1 year age off of maternity leave, and that's when separation anxiety really kicks in. That's when kids cling to your legs and cry, I don't want you to go. Not that they can talk yet, but So good strategies are say goodbye. I know it's quicker and easier to sneak out when you've left them with a caregiver, but what that does is it doesn't build trust. So then when you're home with your child alone and you leave the room to go to the bathroom, they think you're gone. They don't know where you went. They start feeling very insecure. So when you leave, say goodbye, wave goodbye, give them a kiss, put them in your caregiver's arms, and firmly walk out the door. They will settle down, and your caregiver will call later and tell you how, if they're settling down or not. What you could do is leave an item with them that smells of you, maybe a scarf or a pillowcase or something, a little comfort item. And it's really helpful to acknowledge their feelings. Say, I know you're sad. It's sad to leave mommy or daddy. And sometimes that helps, but I think it just makes us feel better. One thing I did was you can have identical stuffies. So if you buy 2 stuffies and leave one with your child and then you take one, you can say, oh, when you're lonely during the day, just give this a squeeze and then I'll get a squeeze on my end. That's kind of a nice strategy. When my daughter went away to university, we had matching crystal necklaces. So I'd say, okay, when I'm thinking of you, I'm going to squeeze my necklace and you'll get a little squeeze on yours. It was really hokey, but hey, it worked. It felt like we were connected, and that's what you want, is that tangible connection while you're separated. And children understand things they can touch and hold. They don't understand you're coming back in 2 hours because they don't know how long 2 hours is. Okay, we'll have just a minute here for questions on separation anxiety. Now, let's move on to sleep. Alberta Health Services key content here is adequate sleep is important for restoration and growth, and toddlers experience sleep challenges due to their independence and their imagination. A predictable bedtime routine is important, and that's about it. So in Alberta Health Services, under age 1, babies should be sleeping on their own bed surface. Just because it's safer if they're on their backs, in their own surface, in parents' room for the first 6 months. After age 1, when children are toddlers, there is no recommendations on where toddlers should sleep. So it's up to families' preferences. So if your toddler sleeps with you in a family bed or sleeps in their own room, still in a crib or in their own toddler bed, it doesn't matter. It just matters that everyone's sleeping and no one's crying. So how much is enough sleep? Well, children 12 months and up, they need about 11 to 12 hours at night, plus 1 or 2 naps till about age 3. Now, the hours recommendations are going to differ depending on what organization. If you're looking at the American Academy of Pediatrics, they have different recommendations for that age, as Canadian Pediatric Society does. So what's important is every child has different sleep needs. So what does your child need? What's normal that they don't wake up cranky all the time and they're getting enough sleep? You would know that. But generally speaking, children this age need about around 12 hours a night plus 1 or 2 naps until about age 3. Now you get a variance. Some children quit their naps at 18 months, all naps during the day, and some children are still requiring 1 nap a day up until kindergarten. So it depends. Habits are really important. We tell parents of babies that 5 hours is sleeping through the night, and children from 2 to 8 months are settling into a nighttime routine. About 1 year, they still need 1 nap a day, so usually that's the after lunch nap, and somewhere around 2 to 5 years, no nap. These are my 2 children that I put down for a nap, and you can see they're doing anything in their room but napping. They got a hold of a roll of toilet paper, and That was not one of my better parenting moments, I'll have to say. It's cute though now. Now you can look at the picture and laugh and go, oh, that was such a fun time. Wasn't at the time. Okay, so it's routine and sleep associations are very important. What are the differences? Well, let's look. Routines are the bedtime routine. It's things you do in order, in step, to signal to the body that it's time to go to sleep. So children have a routine. This is usually it. Snack, bath, pajamas, clean teeth, book or prayers, cuddle, and good night. And we adults have routines too. Snack, shower, pajamas, teeth, read, good night. If you are rushed and you need to get the kids to bed quickly, it's better to cut the time for each of these things rather than cut one out. Because remember, young children love predictability. They need to know that things are going to happen every night, and it builds their emotional resilience. So if you're late one night, you may want to cut the book down to, one tiny little book kind of thing rather than cut out the whole book time. Now, associations are things that occur in the environment that we associate with sleep. I know my big one right now is movies. I can't seem to sit or lie down horizontally without falling asleep to a movie. That seems to be my sleep association. Put on a movie, I go to sleep. Children, same thing. They have sleep associations too. Darkness, maybe the same music. I remember one son, all my kids, I use the same music at bedtime to signal sleep. And I swear, if they hear that song on the radio now as they're driving down a road, they might fall asleep because they're so conditioned that sleep happens during that music. Videos used to work well too, but again, that was back in the day where we didn't have blue light emitting screens. We had VHS videos, so those screens can keep children and adults awake, so you may want to reconsider that. Nursing, rocking, cuddling, that's fine. If you want to nurse your child to sleep or rock them to sleep, that's fine. Just have a few other associations too, like maybe dad is not doing the nursing but doing the rocking, and so you have breaks. You can mix it up. Babysitters can come in and take over the associations too. If you're going to do a bottle, make sure it's full of water, not sugary liquids. Now, sleep cycles. Children have about 7 cycles a night. Adults have about 5. Each sleep cycle lasts about an hour and a half, and it goes from light sleep for the first 20 minutes and then deep, deep restorative sleep, and that's the stage where you can actually move them when they wake up. And then last is the rapid eye movement, or REM stage. Sleep depends on temperament too. A lot of more high-need, spirited temperament children can get by on less sleep and are very sensitive to sleep noise in the environment. Easygoing children can sleep through anything. I have one son who, when he went to university, his friends filled his bed with cornflakes and he slept on it. He's so easygoing. He has also slept on stairs, change tables, high chairs, and concrete floors. So I'm not quite that easygoing, but kids are different. So what helps? White noise really helps. That is a really good sleep association. It keeps children out longer. Dark helps. Warmth helps. Smell helps. So pillowcases are okay for toddlers, not for babies. But, just having a little blanket that smells of you can be comforting in the night. Sucking, again, toddlers still want a soother, so sucking may help them calm down and go to sleep. Movement, well, we all know how that works well. And for parents to watch those sleep signals, if you notice your child is getting cranky, not focusing, pulling on their ears, it's time. They are looking for sleep, and it's a good time to put them to bed. Sleep training plans are in Alberta Health Services must be respectful to both parent and children, which means Alberta Health Services does not recommend crying it out and not for babies before 6 months. So let's just go through these age groups and what are the major sleep challenges that keeps them up during that age. For babies and little toddlers, it's separation anxiety. They are scared of going to sleep alone. They want the comfort and security of parents next to them. So it's a constant battle to get them to sleep alone. Some parents choose to maintain that battle. Other parents give up and say, okay, well, I'll sleep with you. So again, it's personal choice. Everything works differently for different families. And I talked about the recommendations already. Older toddlers, 2 to 3 years, what keeps them up? Fears. As I said, they're starting to develop that imagination. Separation anxiety, again, a big one. And talk about their fears. If it works for you, have them sleep with someone, maybe a sibling, maybe they can fall asleep on the couch next to you and you'll move them later. Or if that doesn't work for you and they keep coming out of bed, just keep leading them back to bed. In the early years book, that's the recommendation is take them by the hand, don't party, don't be exciting, just boringly take them back to bed. Lead them back again and again and again. At some point they may give up. But if there's all kinds of sleep options, these are some of them a lot of parents tried. It's interesting to note there's a sleep study in the U.S. that Liz Pantley did. I don't think she did it, but she quotes it, a national sleep study, and it found that 70% of parents with children under age 5 would get up at some point in the night, either because their kids are getting out of bed or nightmares or they're getting up too early. Sleep is a huge issue, and I think parents just have to accept that you're not going to have a good sleep until your youngest child is age 5 and starting to sleep pretty consistently every night into the school age years. So whatever works so everyone's sleeping and no one's crying is the best solution for your family. Here are some options that parents have told me have worked. And it doesn't mean this is going to be permanent. It means when it's ready to change habits, change them. You don't have to worry about bad sleep habits here. This is not the stage that you teach good sleep habits. School age years are a good stage, but not here because everybody's still getting up. Toddlers have nightmares, night terrors, teething, separation anxiety, sickness, toilet accidents. Nobody's really sleeping well in those first 5 years. So the key is be flexible. Here's our flexibility. This is our master bedroom. And my husband gave up and we moved the bunk bed into our room. Now we had a big enough bedroom to do this, and then the children would sleep on their own surface, but in our room. So it felt comforted to them. A lot of parents ask about, well, what about intimacy? Well, don't worry, there are other rooms in your house. I'm sure you can find creativity in that area. But if everybody wants to sleep, sometimes, be flexible. Look at other solutions that may work for you. I show this picture on the left because my kids actually turned the bunk bed into a puppet theater. So they would do shows, and it was kind of fun. The day we moved the bunk bed out of the room was the happiest day in my husband's life, though. So, sleep strategies. So if you don't want to sleep with your children, here's some strategies that would help at bedtime. Spend some extra time together. I know you have a list of things to do and you want some me time, but if you can spend an extra 10 minutes reading, cuddling, talking, kissing, kids might be more able to let you go. A ticket system. So giving your child, say, 2 tickets, 2 get out of bed tickets every night to spend on getting an extra drink, getting an extra hug. It gives them control on how they spend the tickets. So that might work too. Sending your partner in to comfort them. sometimes that works because they're not the preferred parent. Children go through an age around 3, 4 where they prefer one parent. It's usually the parent they spend the most time with, and it can be quite upsetting to the other parent, but it's just a stage and they get over it. So if you send that parent in, sometimes they might not always call for the other parent. Again, look at your associations. I remember I used movies a lot because I had 4 kids to put to bed and my husband was working out of town. And about halfway through the movie, they were asleep. So I learned that as a Girl Guide leader too. You get everybody horizontal, you turn off the lights, you get them into bed, you put a movie on, and you quietly turn down the volume every 15 minutes. And eventually, everybody's sleeping. It's a good way to settle kids down and get them sleeping. For separation anxiety, you might want to put a digital photo frame in their room. So get some really good close-up headshots of you and your partner and put it on a slideshow. And that helps kids with a visual reminder that you're close by. You can just set up a laptop or tablet too. And rewards work. I had one friend who used to promise her son a treat if he stayed in bed all night, and it worked. For kids with ADD, sometimes that just helps a bit. But again, it's your preference. Nap time. So when kids are going from 0 naps or from 1 nap a day to 1, they start getting really cranky around 4 o'clock, that start of arsenic hour. So when I say add water, maybe get them in the bathtub. Be sure to supervise. Do not leave them alone in the bathtub. Or get them playing in the sink with you while you're trying to make dinner, those kinds of things. Avoid driving at that time. Avoid putting on videos because they'll fall asleep. Get them helping you in the kitchen if you can. Give them something to do or play with. And maybe 1 out of every 3 days, they're going to need a nap. So maybe that's the time you do want to drive and get them napped, and then they can try the other 2 days without going without a nap. Preschoolers, 3 to 6 years, what keeps them up? Nightmares and night terrors. So you can talk to them. If they have nightmares, talk to them. Ask them to color you a picture in the morning. Change the pillowcase so they'll have a different dream. And that's what dream catchers are. You just turn them around on the wall and they tell your child, okay, now you're going to have a different dream. It's kind of cute. Night terrors are, it's kind of like sleepwalking for the little guys. So they're not really conscious or aware, but they look like they're aware, and it can be pretty terrifying to parents. It happens in transitions between sleep cycles. Not every children gets them, but some do. And nightmares are bad dreams, but night terrors are just waking up, being awake. So it can be worse when kids are tired, and best practices are don't wake them up, kind of reassure them and try and get them back horizontal to bed. There's no lasting effects, and it's something kids grow out of it. Or they may start sleepwalking in the school age years. School age years, what keeps them up? Well, worries. And here's some best practices is, talk to them, have them keep a journal, help them listen to a CD, music can help, and maybe some one-on-one time. Teens, again, anxiety, fears, and screens keep them up, as it does to us. So you want to talk to them. Best practices are to turn off all screens at least 1, better 2 hours before we go to bed. And teens naturally, their circadian rhythms are changing in that they're moving forward. So they have a hard time going to sleep until midnight, which is really hard because, although school times for teens are getting later in the morning, it should be a little later. But again, that policy doesn't follow research. Okay, and that's it for sleep. So let's take a few minutes now if you have any questions on sleep. Okay, our last section now is on toilet training. So Alberta Health Services key content here is children should take the lead in toilet learning. The parent's role is to provide information and support for the child. Average age now of toilet training is 2.5 to 3.5 years. Used to be 18 months when my parents did it, but it was a real competition back then. Children can get control of bowel first, then urine, daytime first, and then nighttime. So it's not unusual if children still wet the bed till about age 6. Pretty normal stuff. The process takes about 2 years. If they're 2, it takes months. If they're 2.5, it may take weeks, and if they're 4, it can take days. So the key is the longer you wait, the faster it goes because they're more developmentally ready to use a potty. This is a little potty chair. Signs of readiness is that their sphincter muscles must be mature enough to hold in whatever they're holding in until they can run to a bathroom. If they are regular, so they regularly wake up from naps and they're pretty good, that's good. They have the cognitive awareness to hold everything and to know things are coming down the pipe and to get to the toilet in time. And they should have the ability to undress, like just simple sweatpants, pull up, down, that kind of thing. And they should be in a fairly cooperative stage. So if there's a major change in your life, like a new baby, you might want to rethink a move, a vacation, rethink toilet training. There's no magic window, so if you don't do it at a certain time when they're 2.5, don't worry. When it's 3, it might be a better time for all of you. So make sure you're in a stage where you're not stressed, and make sure that they're in a stage where things are going well and they're pretty cooperative. They're not in a power struggle stage or a no, I do it stage. They're going to make messes, so best practices, just clean them up matter-of-factly. Keep up encouragement. Say, oh, wow, you almost made it this time. Good for you. And don't punish for messes. It's not their fault. Toilet training is 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And yes, rewards work if they're developmentally ready. So a lot of parents use chocolate chips because they're small, and chocolate is easier to clean off the teeth than other things. But you can use stickers, whatever works. And don't worry, you're not going to reward them forever. Many 13-year-olds can use the toilet without getting stickers or chocolate chips. Amazingly. Okay, so anybody have any questions on toilet training? So I want to thank you for listening to this second session of Terrific Toddlers, and we can end with this lovely poem by Shel Silverstein called The Voice. There is a voice inside of you that whispers all day long, I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. No teacher, expert, parent, or friend, or wise woman can decide what's right for you. Just listen to the voice that speaks inside. Great. So I hope this session on development gives you enough information that you can make some informed choices on how to parent your toddler. Next week is session 3, and we're going to look at principles of brain development and what stress, toxic stress, positive stress, tolerable stress, stages of play, healthy self-esteem, effective communication with toddlers, and safety. So looking forward to you joining us next week. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to email us and we can answer them individually. Thank you and good night.